Hello everyone, today I'm taking a look at the Skyrim DLC, which is both Dawnguard and Dragonborn. And if anything, this is just a way for me to say I actually truly beat all the content in Skyrim. Like I actually finished and completed Skyrim, which to me is honestly a very weird statement to say. The only other Bethesda game RPG that I've done that with is Fallout 3. Fallout 3, when it came out, I got all the DLCs and I just consumed all of them at once. I just did everything in Fallout. I was so obsessed with it and I just loved it so much. And Skyrim, I was definitely also obsessed with when it came out. I just kind of at a certain point got burnt out where things felt a little bit too similar, or I just was like, I just can't. But it was interesting too to even look at my save file history. And just to be clear, this is on the original Xbox 360, so there are no mods. This is as vanilla gets. So looking at, the original, what do you call it? The original Skyrim game and my history of playing it, it's interesting that, my first saves are obviously like I got it at 11, 11, 11. So a lot of the saves were in 2012. And then I saw a bunch of saves in 2013 where I actually beat Alduin. I actually was shocked at myself that, because I've gone back to Skyrim here and there over the years, and I've played it here and there in certain, sprints and spans for a few months and then drop it and go to something else. But I was surprised all the way back in 2013, I actually beat the main story quest. And, because that was a big thing. Like, do I want to, like, keep doing all the side quests or just go to the main thing? And I just kind of surprised myself because I didn't think I would do it that early, honestly. That's only a couple years since it came out. And so, and then after that, you look at 2016, I came back to it, and I was doing things like the Thieves Guild quest line, the Dark Brotherhood, and all the other side content. And I did that up until 2017, where I finally unlocked the DLC for the first time. We thought, well, it's DLC for Skyrim, like it's one of the greatest popular games of all time. To not go all the way, to not see what the full experiences would be, I think doing it, just leaving it half done, just to know, because there's so many people that have played this game, that have touched it, that have experienced it, but never fully actually played it. And for anyone who hasn't played Skyrim, very few of you, I imagine, but the experience of playing Skyrim is that the world is so dense and so filled with these little scenarios and events that you get caught up in all of these other activities that you kind of forget about the main story, that you're this dragonborn trying to defeat a dragon called Alduin. Like, you completely forget about that. And for a lot of people, they realize that, oh no, if I actually go and beat the final boss, because it's not that complicated, it's not that varied, it's just that you get sucked up in all these side things, and it feels like you have a grocery list of little things you have to do. It might be things like, oh, you have a quest from an orc to go mine some special ore in this cave, or it might be something very simple like, oh, you found a book, you have to return it to this guy at a college. Like, it could be very simple like that, or it could be a whole different quest. And it's just, there's so many things going on in the world. Like, you'll just be in the world and there'll be a courier who gives you a letter, and anyway, there's so many things going on in Skyrim that makes it feel alive. And that, again, that's one of the main things that Starfield did not have. People say that Starfield is a Bethesda game with a Bethesda formula. That is just Skyrim in space. It's really not, because those maps are just empty. Like, the one point of an open world game is that you actually fill it with little things. Even if it's like a little animal, little creature, you won't go more than 5 meters without at least seeing something new, without some kind of change or shift or whatever. Because the death of a game is predictability. And that's true for single player or multiplayer. As soon as a game becomes predictable, there's no point in playing it, really. So for Skyrim, a lot of players realized, implicitly or explicitly, I don't actually want to go beat the final boss, because if I do, I'll like be able to walk away from the game, but I don't actually want an excuse to stop playing, because just being in the world is so amazing. And I think I have a theory why that is. I mean, there's so many theories and so many elements that make Skyrim such a holistically engrossing and immersive experience. But I would say the number one factor and attribute, especially going back to it after all this time, is the music. The music by Jeremy Soule is it's absolutely legendary, and I think what really makes it work in this kind of environment and for this scope of time is that it's all very classical and epic and orchestrated, and it's almost like the music. Like, obviously you're going to hear the same tracks here and there, and it's going to like go through quite a few of them, but a lot of them they because of the nature of how they're composed, it's not like an 8-bit game where you have a very obvious pattern like Mario Brothers. Like, at a certain point, if you have to hear the Mario Brothers theme song for like the 10th time in a row, you're getting kind of annoyed, because again, it's predictable. You start anticipating the notes. In Skyrim, though, you can't anticipate the music. The music is orchestral, and so it kind of like fades into the background. It pulls you in this like zen state, and it's so good. I kind of hate it a little bit, because Skyrim it's like a meme at this point, that it's one of the best games ever made. Like, it's almost a meme, but it's so true. Like, the Skyrim zone, the Skyrim zen state, the state of being at peace and at one with the nature and the beauty of the game. And by the way, this is a very beautiful, good, looking game. Not only, graphically. I mean, graphically, it's a bit dated in some places, obviously, but the art direction is really amazing. And it's again another reason why I play this a lot more than Oblivion and Morrowind, is just like the character models for, not the characters, but the models for things like weapons, like elven armor, glass weapons, orcish weapon and armor. With the DLC, you get dragon plate and dragon bone mail and was it Stalrim armor, and all of these armors are just, the art design of it looks aesthetic. And I realized that I had this collectathon or collectivist mindset when going into this game, because all the weapons have aesthetic value. That's not necessarily true for the previous games. Like, for example, when I finished Morrowind, I was like, okay, I have Keening, I have the other one, I have like, this one like a blades, style thing. I have all the best stats of armor and weapons, and it's like, I don't really have an incentive to go and do side missions and side dungeons, because my gear is so high level that that is the value of the gear. The value of the gear is the level. And kind of in a weird meta way, and this is where, the entire, I mean, this could be a whole meta and a whole commentary on cosmetics and aesthetics in games, but the other reason that I found myself playing this game again is for the aesthetic value of the items. A glass greatsword is not going to do more damage than the weapon I have at the end of the game, but aesthetically it looks really cool. I want to have it in my inventory, and I also want to forge it and smith it and make it the best possible damage output it could possibly do, because I think it just looks really cool. So there's value in collecting things, and this is something that did not really exist in the previous games, because, like, let's just be honest, they just kind of all looked very kind of the same. But the designs in Skyrim, it's like elven, orcish, Stalrim, Nordic, steel, like Skyforge steel. Each one of these designs and family of designs for the armor, from the helmets to the chest to the boots to the hammers, the axes, the swords, the bows. Each one of these things has a very specific design philosophy, and it feels like a family of design. It just feels like you want to collect them all because they look so cool. And so that's just something that kind of gave me extra emphasis to try to collect everything and smith it to the best possible value. And the other thing that also kind of kept me back, and just I'm almost impressed at my own like older game save files. So I played most of the game in 2012 where I explored a lot. 2013 I actually beat it. 2016 I finished all the side missions, and then from 2017 to 2019 I saw my save files were kind of in the exact same place. And so what I was doing over those years was exploiting the game. And like some of these I heard by happenstance and some of them I discovered myself. But man, I really maxed out my stats a lot. So for example, there's two things I did to max out. Number one is there's one side quest in the base game where you go to like this northern island and you use this Dwemer cube or something to activate this giant portal or this giant like Dwemer chest or something inside this giant sphere, and you're with the wizard and he gets disintegrated when he goes up to it. But this book that you retrieve from this quest, it basically gives you a boost in all one family of stats. So if you choose like combat, it's going to boost all your combat skills. And I forgot exactly what I did, but I had a save file with that book in the bookcase. Because the thing is, once you read it, it's a one-time use and you can't ever use it again. But I had some setup where I had it in the bookcase, and in that bookcase, I could like mash, like take it out and put it back, and somehow it reset the one-time usage, so I could keep stacking my skill points infinitely. And so that basically got me to the point where between 2017 and 2019 I maxed out all my skills. I have 100 in everything. And then beyond that, what I was doing, because like I don't remember a lot of this stuff. I look back at these old save files and I'm like, how did I figure this out and what's going on? And what happened is I also found the muffle strat. And so for those of you who don't know, and of course there are probably better ones, but the muffle strat is essentially just a very quick, I don't know if it's a video on YouTube or whatever, but if you essentially reset your illusion skills to 0 and you hold down L and R with muffle at the same time, for some reason it gives you this massive boost. Like it is the fastest way to level up. And the way you level up in Skyrim is kind of odd, where every skill has its own little level up bar, and the cumulative aggregation of how many skills level up will give you an overall level up, which gives you things like perk points to use on skills and an increase in health, magic, or stamina. So I had maxed out everything to 100. So and when I had done that, I was at level 80 something, roughly 80 or 85. And so by abusing this muffle stat, where I'm just sitting in my breeze home and Windhelm, and I'm just casting muffle over and over and over again. I remember like my brother was doing it too. We put on a movie, but we have the Xbox controller in our hands, and we were watching the movie, but on the other, channel, which we couldn't see, we knew we were muffling, and we're just holding L and R the whole time. And by doing that, I was able to jump from level 80 to level 136. And that's where I had 550 points of health, stamina, and magic. And I also had quite a few perk points that I allocated to everything, because my dream was also to have the best smithing, best enchanting, so I could make the best potential weapons and make some custom, stuff in the game. So what really kind of occurred was that when I came back to Skyrim in 2025, I was using my 2019 save file. So I actually didn't touch it at all during COVID. So you're kind of seeing this weird history of also my usage and my patterns with it. And so I came back to it and I said, okay, cool. I know that I have max stats and I've grinded and I have full everything, but now I just have to actually beat the DLC. And again, the DLC is something that, it's an aspect of Skyrim. It's like, I don't know, it's like reading the Apocrypha of the Bible or something. It's like, yeah, this is technically part of this core amazing experience, but no one's actually ever really done that. Like, very few people actually read that stuff or experience this stuff. So I was kind of really excited and interested to see what was actually in this stuff, to actually go to the end of one of the most dense games possible. It's like reading War and Peace, basically, the thing I'm trying to get across. So I was really interested. And so finally, I just all this set up to actually play the DLC. And the DLC itself was pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's amazing. Like, it's, and this is the thing a lot of people say, that Skyrim does not honestly have a great story. Like, everything else in Skyrim is fantastic. The story is serviceable. It's not bad by any means, but it's just like, yeah, okay, you're a Dragonborn, whatever. But it's the world, it's the atmosphere, it's all the gameplay that gets you sucked into it, and the quests. So the first one, Dawnguard, is essentially there's a castle Dawnguard on the far east of Skyrim, where essentially there are vampires, and these vampires have invaded Skyrim, and they're killing people. And I remember I had one time where I was doing my muffling arc, and outside my house in the Breeze home in Windhelm, the two vampires showed up and killed two NPCs. And I remember I had this phobia or this anxiety where they killed them, and I killed those vampires, and I went off to, and went and did other quests, and I came back, and I realized to my horror that those ash piles that of the people they killed were still there, and I was sure it was the guards. But there was one time I came out, and I thought the blacksmith, Amelia, whatever her name is, I thought that one of those ash piles was her. Like, oh my god, did I make a save over like my perfect save file where actually one of the main NPCs in Whiterun? Sorry, I was saying Windhelm. I'm so sorry. Whiterun was actually dead, and I was so distraught over this that I almost went back, loaded the other save until I just waited 24 hours and realized, oh, it was nighttime. She just was inside. So yeah, that was like to me, that was my 9/11 for Skyrim. The fact that a main NPC in Whiterun, the core capital of the game, was killed or could have been killed was shocking to me. But unfortunately, it was just two guards and fires. So that was kind of the beginning of Dawnguard. And then Dawnguard's story actually isn't too bad, honestly. It was also very interesting to do these DLCs when I had the whole world and the base world fully mapped and explored. So, for example, what that means is that they go to war with the vampires, and you go to certain missions where it's like, oh, you have to go investigate this vampire hideout, go to this cave. And fortunately, it's like, okay, no problem. I've explored everything, so I can fast travel everywhere. If I want to go to this cave, I've already cleared it, technically. It says on the map, so I can go there and do that, no problem. It's just that now it's populated with, quest-style NPCs, so it's like, okay, cool. And then beyond that, they have this one new area just north of Skyrim where it's the vampire castle. And so the actual story of Dawnguard is okay. I mean, really, it's a story about the main character, Serana, who is a vampire girl, like the daughter. She's the heir to like the vampire throne or dynasty that lives in northern Skyrim. And so, you have this one aspect where you're like, oh, join the vampires or don't join the vampires. And in the course of that quest line, if you decide to become a vampire, you get a whole different skill tree similar to the werewolf. So only when you're in that form you can access it. So it's very similar to that. And of course, once you do that, you can't really be friends with the companions anymore for obvious reasons. I was just reminded of the strange amulet. One thing I will have to say about Skyrim that is absolutely infuriating, and there's so much we tolerated from this game because it was so good. So there are certain quest items you can't get rid of your inventory. I talked about that Dwemer cube that disintegrates, or that is on the guy that after he disintegrates, if you pick that up after he disintegrates as you normally naturally would, it's a quest item that can't leave your inventory. You're actually not supposed to pick it up. So there's these, and then with the strange amulet, like that is, oh my god, it's the one apparel item where if you're doing the Dark Brotherhood quest line and you get this thing, it's kind of like you need, like you go to one of the NPCs. I don't know if it's Cicero, but he's basically an NPC that says, "Hey, I'll buy this strange amulet for you for like 1,000 gold." I'm like, that's nothing. I'd rather have a rare item that I can use and probably and use it for something else later on rather than just give it to you for no reason. It's not very why. So most people won't sell the amulet. Most people will pick up the drummer cube. Um, most people are stuck with the Stones of Baron Zaya until they do the Thieves Guild quest line where they can put it in the crown, which is thank God. Because there's 23 of them just stuck in your misc inventory. But a lot of these items, I always thought, oh, there must be a way to get rid of these, or there must be a way, like a failsafe or a loophole. There's not. So I know when I see a real Skyrim player's account, if they have Strange Amulet, Drummer Rune Cube, the Attunement Sphere, um, and like a few other things, I know they're a real gamer. I know they're a real player because they've actually played it and they just played it naturally. And they're just it's like a curse, but also a badge of honor. Like I just have this thing properly stuck in my inventory, but it's like a badge of honor. Like yeah, you actually played the game correctly in a weird way. Anyway, so and I think even after the Dawnguard DLC, I got one of the friggin' Elder Scrolls stuck in my inventory, which I'm actually not too upset about because you can still take it out and read it, and it does that really cool effect. It doesn't really do anything else besides that, but it's a really cool effect to have. Because you're supposed to sell it to the guy at the College of Winterhold, and I go to him and I say, "Hey, can I sell my Elder Scrolls to you?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he buys 2 out of the 3 when I have all 3 on me. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Whatever. So, so moving on from that. So Serana, yeah, she's like the daughter of this vampire heir, and she's kind of like this. Oh, I'm not defined by my vampirism. I'm not. I don't have to be defined by who I am. No, I don't have to be defined by what I am, but who I am. And so there's this whole quest line where the Dawnguard is this old order of kind of like crusaders that come together to defeat the vampires. And so they all kind of, again, band together and they all say, okay, we're going to fight and, take out the vampires. And you meet the vampires. And so, again, it's like a faction story. It's not very complicated or whatever. And, yeah. And so there are points where she trusts you and you have to trust her. And she decides so her father locked away her mother for eternity in like the shadow realm basically. So you have to sneak into their castle, go to the courtyard, open up the portal by making yourself a vampire, meet her mother in the underworld, and also do a bunch of weird side quests there that are very interesting, I would say. And when you go help her mother, you find out the one thing that can like kill the vampires, and then you bring the Dawnguard together and the final quest of that main quest line is you raid the castle and you defeat and fight her father, who is the vampire lord. I forgot one thing very quickly before that. There's a lot of actually really cool lore and lore points in this DLC. So, for example, when you go to the underworld, how do I say this? You essentially, one of the NPCs is Jube. And if that name rings a bell, it's because that's the very first NPC you meet in Morrowind. Like when you start Morrowind, you're always like a slave or a prisoner in all these games. And in Morrowind, like the guy you're with on the ship he's in the underworld. And so he has this crazy backstory that apparently he's Saint Jube, where he like saved a bunch of people and did a bunch of religious works and whatever. And also, he's known for genociding the cliff racers in Morrowind. He just like wiped them out entirely, and that's one of the reasons they sainted him because he was basically like Saint Patrick. I get with Saint Patrick with the snakes, I guess. And that whole story, that whole quest line, and so when you meet him, you have to get his autobiography. He's been writing it, but he has like amnesia or he's like disoriented because he's a spirit in the underworld and he doesn't actually realize he's dead. So you have to realize that he's actually dead, and you have to help him realize that like his story and what his real past is. So it's honestly it's very frustrating because you need a guide for it, because you need to find these tiny little pieces of paper. You need to find all 10 of them and then give them all to him so that he can give you a book, which is a compilation, because they count as quest items in your inventory. And you're like, I do not want to hold 10 or like 9 out of 10 quest inventory. And just that whole setup and that whole story of Jube, it's so Morrowind coded. It's just this random, crazy, insane lore that Morrowind to me is known for. So I don't know if it was the same writer that kind of came back specifically for that, but I was just I don't know, I just kind of smiled because that it's like it's so that it's so Morrowind. It's so weird in so many ways. But I really did enjoy it. The other thing that I forgot to mention in terms of lore is that also in this DLC, you meet one of the very first Falmer. And this is something that is absolutely crazy to me. Is, because the Falmer, the Snow Elves, you never actually see them. They're alluded to. There's like statues of them, but you actually meet them in this DLC. And there's two Falmer, and I think they're called Altamiri. No, that's the normal elves, sorry, or the high elves. I forget what they're called, but basically they are the last ones alive, and there's just two brothers. And of course, one brother is evil and a vampire, and the good brother asks you to go and kill him, basically. And this whole quest also takes place in an area of the map called the Northern Vale. So there's this series of caves that you go through in the northern area, and it's really interesting how they did this, where they just made like this crack in this cave, an entrance to a completely new domain. And it's this really cool area where it's like a fjord, and you have these tall valleys and mountains, and it's very beautiful. It's very scenic, and just, I mean, the whole world of Skyrim is a very beautiful world, but specifically the Vale is a very cool hidden place. You have different animals here. You have deer. You have saber-tooth cats that have like green fur, and they're called, the Vale cats or the Vale deer. It's just a very cool place, and it's a very kind of well-structured area where it's not exactly a dungeon per se, but there's like, oh, you have to get these shrines and do little puzzles for each shrine, and once you do that, the shrines essentially will allow you to teleport between them. So yeah, it's like an open world-ish, but it's structured in such a way you're kind of going through it semi-linearly. You can like deviate for like goodies and stuff, but there's still like a natural flow to this area. And a lot of the enemies are here are Falmer and vampires. And I don't know, I really liked this area, and I really liked the Vale. It was a very cool place to be. And it's only difficult though because you can like fast travel there, but then once you're in there, the only way to get to like any of the important parts is you have to go through the other teleporters and shrines, so you have to go through multiple loading screens, but that's kind of like whatever. And then yeah, and so when you finally defeat this evil Falmer brother, you actually get this friggin' blew my mind. You actually get light arrows or blood arrows. So like, I'm sorry, I just can't help but think of Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda, where so like this is the main plot point. The only way to kill the vampires or to take them out is to use arrows of light. And so this ancient snow elf is the only one that can imbue these arrows of light into so it's interesting. You have to give him 20 elven arrows, and for like a small fee, or I think he trades in like ore or something, he'll turn them into light arrows. And similarly, Serana, she says, oh, I can actually take these arrows, these elven arrows, and if I dip them in my blood, they'll become blood arrows. And so besides just doing special damage or more damage to certain enemy types, and also I forgot, they have to be used with the snow elf bow you get at the end, the bow of REL or something. Um, if you use those arrows specifically with those bows, not only will you get a damage boost, but if you shoot it at the sun, I'm sorry, this is so like fire arrow coded from Ocarina. If you shoot a light arrow at the sun will light up and it will start raining down AoE light attacks all over the place. It is so cool. But what is even cooler and honestly scary is when you shoot a blood arrow at the sun. Because bear in mind, either way or whatever faction you choose to do will depend on this. So if you shoot a blood arrow at the sun, it like turns black and then red, and then everything becomes dimmed throughout the whole world. And so the advantageous aspect here, besides looking really, really cool, is that now your vampire stats and bonuses that are usually destroyed during the daytime, you can use them whenever you want. So the kind of combos that you shoot a blood arrow to the sky, transform into a vampire, and like massacre everything. Honestly, like it looks so freaking cool. It's one of the coolest animations I've ever seen. And when it happened, I legitimately thought this must be a mod. This must be. There's no way this was a DLC or even in the base game because it looks so cool and so otherworldly that I just didn't believe it. And what I also loved about how that entire system or function or gimmick plays out is that there's no cutscenes. And that's the thing I really forgot that I missed about Bethesda games in this style is a heavy reliance on in-game animations and cutscenes. You say what you will, and I love a good cutscene. I love a good Metal Gear Solid game. Don't get me wrong, but there's something so much more special about the cutscene or the big events happening all in the game engine because it doesn't take you out of the experience. It doesn't, you don't lose in the boss battle or you don't win in the boss battle, but in the cutscene you lose. There's none of that. Everything is happening in engine, and there's of course, there's a lot of things that sometimes break or get funny during those things because you want the framing, you want the camera to be just right, you want everything to look correct. But it's never exactly 100% what you want when you have the in-game engine. But when it is in-game, it feels like it's more real because it's not taking control away from the players. So you can like mess around with it all you want. If there's some guy making a speech on a palisade, you can Fus Roda him off the thing and reload your save. But it is funny that it lets you do that. You can have the choice to stand there and kind of act in a cutscene way or not. Like it really gives you the choice, and because it's in game, it feels more authentic. So yeah, when you shoot this arrow at the sun and it actually blots out the sun, it doesn't feel like the game is telling you what's happening. It feels like I did that, and I felt really guilty. I'm like, oh, I just caused the apocalypse. Oopsie daisy. But yeah, that's mainly the most part of Dawnguard, and so you finish off, defeating the Vampire Lord and getting his blade and his loot and his stuff and whatever, and finishing the quest, and then Serana becomes, another follower if you want, and the one thing that I did notice though is that Skyrim came out 2011. And what came out in 2010 was it 2010? Around there was Twilight Eclipse. So I'm not saying, there's an influence here, but in the base game they had werewolves, and the DLC they added vampires. And like it's just peak. It's just absolute like this whole aesthetic of like, oh, we have the medieval fantasy like Vikings. What should we add? Werewolves and vampires. Like it's just such a good combo. Just everything is so like teenager edgy. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I love this game, and I love this DLC so much. But anyway, that's Dawnguard. And so yeah, you get some more armor choices. Dawn Guard weapons, different quest items. I think with one of these, you have the whole child system and building your home or customize it or something. I never really did that, honestly. But the other DLC is Dragonborn, which honestly is super confusing because I'm like, well, I'm the Dragonborn, and it sounds like that's kind of like a weird, like it sounds like the Dragonborn DLC is like a continuation of the main story. It's not. Well, it is. I mean, it kind of is and isn't. It's a complete side story, to be honest. So, the Dragonborn DLC was interesting because that allows you to go to Morrowind, and I put that in quotations because you do go to Morrowind, but you go to the northern island of Solstheim, which I think was also DLC in Morrowind. Again, I didn't play a lot of the extra stuff in Morrowind, so and setting foot on the shores of Solstheim, that was my moment where I realized, oh man, I should actually really play Morrowind because everything was so different that I felt like, man, I need to have the context for this culture or this area. And really, going back and looking at Morrowind, it's such an interesting game because not only is it it's fantasy, it's whatever, like I think of all of the Elder Scrolls games, they're all based in classical fantasy, but they always do one thing weird or one thing extra that makes it a little bit more unique. So like I think the most classical fantasy is Oblivion. That was kind of almost open to like the normie audience because it was just like, oh, elves and orcs and whatever. It was very kind of Lord of the Rings in a way, like very almost boring classical fantasy, except for the fact that you started the game fighting demons. That was actually really, really cool, hence Oblivion. Morrowind, however, the entire setting is alien. Like, you have these stilt riders, you have the Dunmer, you have these very odd pyramid like buildings of Vivek City, and the the weirdly shaped oval houses of Balmora, and the basic architecture, and the whole landscape is a giant like volcano ashland. Morrowind feels as much sci-fi as it is fantasy. It is so truly alien that there's just something about Morrowind that has a certain spice, a certain juice, a certain skooma, if you will, that makes it just special. It's not just medieval fantasy, it's something just very truly odd and strange and bizarre from its contemporaries. And as much as Skyrim is still, traditional kind of fantasy, just north, so it incorporates Vikings in that aesthetic, it still takes the step to say, oh yeah, we're specifically this one thing though. We're not just fantasy, we're Dunmer and Dwemer and whatever. And so Skyrim's thing was that, oh, there's dragons. And you can be a Viking and kill the dragons with a shout. Like that there's so many things in this game that I either forgot about or that were added to it that I kept thinking this is so just cool. It's like everything is cool. For example, aside from the armor designs, what they give you in the Dragonborn DLC is, so yes, you go to Morrowind, but you are essentially confronted with a new threat, which is another Dragonborn. And again, with this DLC, the story is absolutely not important. Like, there is another Dragonborn. Deal with it. And you have to fight him. He's your rival, called Mirak. And that's it. Again, the story here, it's fine, it's serviceable, but it's not trying to be anything, which honestly is fine. And the other kind of sub story to that is, and like this is the thing that kind of gets me, is that if I was naming this DLC, I would call this like the Curse of Olag Ball, or I'm sorry, I forget the name of the Daedric Prince, who's actually the one who is the main centerpiece of this DLC. I think it's Aora something. It's essentially the Daedric Prince that is orchestrating all of this and has the this Dragonborn under his command is essentially this giant Lovecraftian eyeball creature with tentacles. And like, I'm sorry, it's just completely Lovecraft code. There's if anyone ever argues something else, I'm just not listening to them, because it is exactly that. And so, for example, there's this whole other aspect. So that you arrive on the shores of Solstheim, you find there are these stones that are mind controlling people to build these temples against their will. They're all being mind controlled. And you go into these temples or these dungeons and you find these books of Mephora or whatever. And when you read these books, you get sent to this otherworldly dimension where you have to fight these weird tentacle scribes, where the whole world seems to be made out of books, and you use the books as pedestals to warp between the next section in the level. And then when you get to the end of that section, you find this master book, which gives you like an optional weird attribute that adds to your permanent stats. So it might be something like companions no longer take damage from your magic or physical attacks. Okay. There might be something where it lets you cast like a special tentacle attack once per day or something, or like a recharge thing. And there might be something that affects your health, stamina, etc. And when you get that, you read the book again and you close it and you basically warp back to the dungeon. And so that's how they're doing that. There's still other dragon shouts in the DLC in Solstheim, but there's also a lot of these books which are giving you almost arguably better powers or more interesting effects that, again, you always have 3 to choose from, but 1 only active at a time. And so there's a lot of sort of quality of life changes that they kind of bake into this DLC. For example, the biggest thing that I was kind of worried about, that I really wanted to go back and fix, I was almost considering starting a new file, is that at the end of the DLC, there's this special reward, this room that allows you to reset and refund all of your perk points for a skill tree. And that, for anyone who hasn't played it, like, that is massive. The fact that, because, I put in like, 4 or 5 into blocking, and at a certain point, it's like, okay, I don't really care about blocking anymore because my health is so high. So it's fine to just have 1, but I've already spent those points. I can't get them back. Those perk points, I'd have to level up again, and I don't really need or want to keep leveling up. So, and that's the thing about the whole muffle strat, is that yes, it'll keep leveling you up, but every time you level up, the amount of times you have to level up your skills to get an overall level up is always more. So if I started level 80 and I did like muffle to 100, I might actually go up 5 levels. But if I'm trying to muffle and go from 15 to level 100 at illusion level up, and I try to use that to level up, I might only level up once overall. If that makes any sense. Like, all this information is just stuck in my head since I just played it. So there's a whole meta to it, right? But yeah, there were just a lot of really cool things you could do in these DLCs. You could turn into a vampire. You can do all these special perks. You get new attacks. You get obviously new weapons. So in Solstheim, there's this one group called the School, and they are essentially an offshoot of Nords who are more kind of indigenous hunters, and they live on this remote island, and they have like a typical tribe story. You befriend one of the people, you bring you back to your tribe, you have to prove your usefulness to the tribe by doing certain things. They accept you as an outsider, you become a champion. The chieftain sacrifices himself so you can defeat or have a chance to defeat Moloch Ball or whatever. You then, do the thing, win the day, marry the chieftain's daughter, whatever, and the whole world is better for it. And so the kind of story that unveils itself as you go through this is that, again, the demon or Dremora or whatever it's called is essentially using Mirak, who, it's kind of like a Sith relationship where they don't really like each other, but like whoever's most powerful will win. And so Mirak is, he wants to essentially leave this Daedric dimension that he's in. And in order to do that, he needs your soul, another dragonborn soul to do that. And once he has it, he'll come back to the world and conquer Solstheim and Skyrim and basically be the evil, the Antichrist Dragonborn. He's the anti-Dragonborn. He's going to come back and rule over everything instead of defeating Alduin. He's going to conquer the Skyrim for his own benefit. But of course, he's stuck there because he's with Daedric Prince. And the Daedric Prince, he wants you to come into the world that he's in just to see if you can beat Mirak. He has no real other use other than entertainment or to use as an agent of his. And you have a weird relationship with the Dremora, as you always do, where it's like, you know, you have different dialogue options where like, yeah, I'll do this and I'll defeat this Mirak guy, but not for you. And it's like, I'm just doing this for myself. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I can always give you, you know, it's that kind of. And there's no real big faction choice you have to make. You just have to, you know, go there and defeat your rivals. And so as you go throughout Solstheim, there's definitely a lot of stuff to do. I was kind of surprised. It's a pretty small map. It's kind of like a lot smaller than the Skyrim map, like 1/20th the size. Like it's the size of like one of the cities in the surrounding area. Like you could run across it and probably one in-game day, maybe less than that. If you had one in-game day, which is, I don't know, like half an hour roughly, you could probably run across the whole island. So it's not huge. And yeah, there's plenty of safe spots. There's plenty of dungeons. They have these new creatures called Reiklings. Obviously, a bunch of stuff they want to put in the base game, but didn't have time. And there's these little, like, I don't know, Ewoks, for lack of a better word, honestly, who you can essentially befriend, and they will make you their chieftain, basically. So that means that they'll join you in battles and help you against other rivals and rival gangs or tribes, but they really don't do much damage. Oh, I forgot. The other really big main component of this main quest line is also this Dunmer wizard who lives in a giant mushroom house on the southeast corner of the island, who makes you do a bunch of errands for him, essentially. But he essentially is the one who is also investigating this Dremora and the fact that people are being brainwashed on the island to essentially build these temples. And he's a very arrogant kind of wizard, and he just finds it annoying. He just doesn't want to contend with it. He's not concerned. Like, the governor of the island is very concerned. He's just like, I can't believe bloody things are trying to kill me, the ash spawn. He's a funny character, honestly. And like, one of his assistants dies, so he's like, I need another assistant, the one that can make tea properly. So there's definitely some kind of, you know, attitude and energy here in the DLC. I think there's also a new kind of dragon that you see here and there. It's not really super important. Like a serpentine dragon or something. And so yeah, it basically ends with the game with you kind of doing a bunch of side stuff, helping out people, helping the town, fixing the mine, helping out this guy, helping out that guy, gathering ingredients, fetch quests, you know, whatever. And then eventually it comes to the point where you have to confront Mirak in Miora's dimension. And so when you're in this dimension, this final fight, it was really frustrating and really hard. And for myself, I mean, it was a great battle. I was actually just over leveled in a certain way that I had to keep resetting the boss fight because it's a Bethesda game. It's not perfect, I understand, but I ran into this one issue. And again, I love this final sequence. Like, in terms of the ways to end the DLC of one of the greatest games ever made, this is a very properly epic ending to an epic game. And so essentially what happens is Mirak, again, completely one-dimensional character, like, I am evil, oh. And so he's waiting for you atop this giant tower. And one of the dragon shouts that you learn in this DLC is Bind Will. And so one of the main mechanics is that you are confronted with a dragon, and you actually use that shout to tame the dragon. And so this is the cool, like this was actually peak. This was a perfect ending to Skyrim as a game and the Dragonborn DLC, where in the final section of this game, you use the shout to control a dragon and you ride a dragon. And they programmed a whole thing around this where it's not perfect, but the dragon will essentially go on a certain patrol loop. It's aggro route, and you can use that to go from place to place up until the final fight with this guy. And it's honestly so cool. And so the issue I was running into when I finally get there and I'm fighting Mirak, it's really cool because he can kill dragons and he can absorb their dragon souls as well. So in the course of this fight with him, he has this special stamina draining sword and all this cool armor and everything. But there's all these dragons in this mythical green Lovecraftian realm. And so whenever his health gets around roughly 30%, he will like teleport and he'll have an invulnerability window on, and he'll basically summon down a dragon. No, he'll like force it to land, and it'll land on this like pedestal or something that kills it, that is specifically designed for him to absorb the dragon soul and for him to get full health again. So the bug that I kept running into that made it super anticlimactic is that I guess I was doing too much damage. So when he absorbed the dragon soul, it didn't actually heal him to full health. And because he wasn't fully healed, the game was like, oh wait, no, the player's obviously cheating, or we need to wait for him to get to full health. So I'd be standing there after the first phase of the fight when he has 30% health, and there's nothing I can do. He's just standing there invulnerable, and I'm trying to like phase through using like ethereal shout. I'm trying to attack him with magic, with shouts, with special items, with whatever, and I just could not figure it out. And so what I realized after hours, what I had to actually do in order to circumvent this is that you just have to kill all the dragons in the area and then start the fight with him, which is just obviously not what the developers intended. So that's on me for being a level 136. So, my bad. But that's what I was able to do. And then I was able to fight him just normally, properly, no problem. But I was so concerned for a moment that my game was permanently glitched, and I tried fist fighting him, so like to get in the least amount of health. That wasn't working. So thank God there was a loophole, because otherwise I thought I'm screwed. I can't actually beat this DLC. It's impossible. So, and the really cool / frustrating thing is that some of the dragons are just too far away to shoot with arrows, and you can use the summon down or the call to make them come down, dragon bind. But what's almost another way to do it is that you can summon the dragon, use Bend Will, get on its back, and have it attack the other dragons. And so once you do that, and it's kind of very inconsistent because you'll miss, you'll be close, you'll be far. The dragon is essentially acting as an NPC, and you're just riding it. So you don't actually have a lot of control. You can essentially tell the dragon to land, and it'll land when it hits the spot in its path where it can do that. Or you can also select enemies and tell it to target them and attack. But even then, it's still going to act as a normal dragon would in the game. It'll track the enemy, it'll attack it, but there's no full control over it. Unfortunate, but I'm still glad they at least added that in as an option, as a possibility. Because again, like riding the dragon, that feels like a mod. That feels like should not be possible, but it is. It's really, and yeah, it's the ultimate thing to do. Like you started off as a dragonborn fighting dragons, and by the end of the DLC, you are the dragon. You're controlling the dragon. That also reminds me, one of the main shouts in this DLC is also called Dragon Kind or something, where you use this shout and it gives you this cool orange and blue armor all around you that boosts your defense and attack. It's so cool. And Mirak has the same thing. You have this very, Dante Virgil fight on top of this cylindrical tower. It's very cool. It's like all very cool. And again, when you defeat Mirak and you defeat this final part of the final DC of one of the most epic games of all time, you get these huge perks. You're able to ride dragons now. You can bend their will. You can also refund all your perk points in a skill tree for one dragon soul and redistribute it. It allows you to do so much of all these new moves, all these new skills. Everything is useful. Everything feels meaningful. Everything is well designed. Everything is cool. Skyrim is such a ridiculously good game. And after coming back to it for more than a decade, I can say for certain it deserves all the praise it gets. Yes, it's kind of over memed and overhyped, but it is still such an amazing game. And again, the main component of that I would say is the music, but also just the armor designs and everything are just so cool. And the environments as well. They are just, again, even at the end of the game, there are still, like I said, certain items that are just stuck in my inventory. I look up a guide, turns out there's no way to get rid of this other than like PC console commands, or you had to sell it to this one guy in this one place, or you were never supposed to pick up that item actually, even though it's completely rare and unique. The other thing I realized at the end game, I'm more interested in aesthetics. You know, I'm not really concerned with the stats of my armor, but what my character actually looks like, what my house actually looks like. So, you know, my actual fit at the end of the game was actually a collage. I did a combination of like the companion armor, like the helm with the horns of Yilsmar, or whatever his name is, like the first Nord. I basically was using a combination of the ancient Nord war axe and warhammer, and so that was kind of my combo. Where essentially, you know, if I needed to bring out a torch, I could still use my single-handed axe, but otherwise, I'm using the ancient Nord battle axe because it looks friggin' like cool, and it almost looks like a scythe. And like I knew, I knew at Bloodborne, if there's a scythe in the game, like it's my weapon. Scythes are just they're literally the edgiest weapons ever made. They're the coolest ones. And so I was kind of in my previous save before this one, where before I saw the DLC, I had a Daedric War Axe as my main weapon. And again, I love that weapon. It looks sick, it looks cool, but I also wanted to have like the good guy version. So I ended up using that weapon. And I used a combination of companion armor and also ebony gauntlets, things that kind of match the pauldrons and their proportionality sticking away from the body. And I played as a Nord, so I was like I was just Nord core. Okay, I was just fully in that element. The other thing I also did at the end of the game is I always wanted to do kind of I called it attunement modding. It's just like attuning a weapon and doing that. But when you attune a weapon, you give it a custom name. And again, the other thing that I really wanted to accomplish is that the final perk for attunement is you can put on two elements. That is crazy to me. That is so cool. So what did I do? And I wanted to have all the best stats, and I wanted to have this sort of like, it's a pseudo modding tool, really. So what did I do? I had two scimitars. First of all, very rare in Skyrim to have weapons from other provinces, from I guess Hammerfell or elsewhere in this game. So the scimitars, you know, just they don't have a lot of damage, but again, just aesthetically, they look unlike any of the other weapons. Like the friggin' guards keep talking about the curved swords. Can you believe them? They're curved swords. So I was like, okay, cool. This is like a rare, unique weapon. And so what I did is I had two scimitars that I attuned to fire and ice magic, and I called it Kotake and Koome, of course, after the Ocarina witches and the final boss that used fire and ice magic. Of course, a lot of my weapons here were Zelda coded, so I also had, what was it? I used a glass sword for the Master Sword, which I think I just gave magicka and stamina damage. And then for a great glass sword, that was the Fierce Deity Blade, and I gave that fire and electricity damage. I was kind of upset because there is actually one weapon in the DLC called the Bane Blade or something, where if you swing it with a power attack, it actually does shoot a projectable energy thing towards the enemy, just like in Zelda. But you can't go to the alchemy lab and actually break down that weapon to learn that attack and apply it to something else. If I could, I would have done that, and that would have been the coolest thing ever. I mean, some people might say, "Oh, well, do you realize you can actually get the real Master Sword and the real, Link set and all this stuff with mods on PC?" It's like, obviously, yes, and obviously, like, yeah, you can do that, and it's easy, and that's kind of the point, and it looks more authentic. But it's almost like in the constraints of the game, it's more rewarding for me to see how much I can make the game resemble something else or another ideal within the framework of the game. Because yes, obviously you can just go to mods and just make it perfectly like as you do. It would also be very easy to go into mods and make my character immediately level 100 and everything. But I just downloaded a thing that manipulated the game to give me that. The enjoyment I get from it is I'm manipulating the components in the game that are not supposed to resemble anything else, and I'm forcing the game to resemble something else. I'm working within the constraints of the game to do the thing that I want, and that to me is almost more rewarding in that sense. It's like this is the most Master sword you can get outside of direct like God God mechanics, Deus Ex Machina manipulation. So that's where I get that enjoyment from. But obviously, yes, I have used the Master Sword mods and other things like that. So I am aware that is possible. But for me, it's a different experience with it, obviously. And I guess I'll just maybe talk a little bit on that. I definitely have modded Skyrim. Obviously, it's kind of like almost a rite of passage for many gamers. And again, it's just weird to me, right? That I have way more. There's a meme like you have way more enjoyment installing the mods than actually playing with the mods, because you're able to manipulate the game to such an extent where if anything is possible, why would I bother actually grinding at anything? If I'm already using something that is abusing or manipulating the game, and I'm sure you can get into an RP state of mind. You can get into different sub objectives and goals and whatnot. But for me, it's just a weird feeling where it's so cool to me that you can use all these mods, but then once you actually try to play the game with the Thomas the Tank Engine dragons and the Macho Man Randy Savage memes and all that stuff. I love all of those, by the way. I think they're great. It's really cool and it's very fun, but I never end up really playing the game for more than half an hour. I'll spend like 5 hours installing mods, start the game, and realize, that was cool. And I'll walk away from it. Because it's no longer someone else's creation, it's now kind of my creation that I've created. And if I've created something, then it's kind of like there's nothing to really learn or explore or know, if that makes sense. So it's fun as a distraction, but it doesn't have long-term playability. Speaking of long-term playability, by the end of the game, all my it felt so good. All my main quests were done, all my side quests were done. The only thing that remained was the Dark Brotherhood Forever, which is a quest that never goes away intentionally because you can just constantly keep doing assassination missions for money, gold, and whatever for the Dark Brotherhood. So that's always there; it just never goes away. But there were definitely some broken quests in there, specifically under miscellaneous. So all the main quests, they kind of all worked properly. They were all gone. But it was the Dark Brotherhood and miscellaneous. And under miscellaneous, you have things like visit the College of Winterhold. I am the Archmage of the College of Winterhold. I do not have to visit. And of course, you think, okay, well, maybe it's glitch. Maybe if I just warp right outside the college in Windhelm and I enter in, maybe it'll check it off. No. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that are still bugged, like, the quest log for the miscellaneous quests. It's like, talk to Greta about going to the Temple of Kinnereth or something. Like I've done that, or like visit Winterhold or Windhelm. Like yes, I have like just basic stuff that, or the Bard's College. Oh my god, like I've done everything in the game, and these things are still there, which is whatever. But it's funny that Bethesda game, right? So we'll forgive and allow that. Um, the other thing I'll say too is after this full quest of doing everything, it feels so complete and so fulfilling to see the whole map filled out, to see all the quests done, all the side things done. It feels incredible and amazing. The other thing that I also got is I get freaking courier letters from Kelselmo in Markarth. It's like, oh, I need a dwarven arrow. It's so rare. Or I need a dwarven exploding bolt or a dwarven artifact. I've heard you've come into possession of one. Like, yes, I have millions of them. Stop sending me letters to sell you them for 28 gold. I don't care. And yeah, that's pretty much that. And yeah, the other thing I'll say too is that I have this feeling of total fulfillment, total like how many people can say they've actually completed and beat Skyrim? And I look at my map and I look at my inventory and I look at my house, by the way. Isn't the most extravagant thing, but what I have done in my house is each area of the Breeze home has a very specific item in it. So, for example, you have obviously there's a cupboard in the kitchen area. Actually, I put all my books there. There is barrel behind the stairs. That's where all my potions go. I have the chest on top of the bookcase. That's where all my misc items go. I have the apothecary lab and the little satchel beside it. That's where all of my ingredients go. In the other part, or other half of the house, at the beginning, if you turn just right, you have two flour sacks. And in there, I have all of my ore. And in the other one, all of my furs for leathering and mining and smithing. Then on the bag on top of the shelf, across from the on top of the bookshelf, that's where I put all my soul gems, again for enchanting. And then there's a flower bag under the bench where I keep all of my enchanted items, my smithing gear that gives me plus 30%, and smithing and other things that I have to just keep on task for if I'm going to enchant or do everything. So that includes also blacksmith potions. Enchanting potions don't exist because then you would be able to like infinitely loop and grind like that and exploit the game. But I do have blacksmith potions in there. And there also, I think there are, oh yeah, you have the boots of Azarius that give you, oh yeah, those are part of my ultimate build, by the way, my final endgame build, because not only do they give you plus 10 to enchanting, but they also let you walk on water. It's the coolest. And then if we go upstairs, there is, to the left, there's a smaller single person bedroom. We have a chest of drawers there, and within there, I kind of put all of my soft cloth clothing, while in the master bedroom, in that chest of drawers, I have my heavy armor clothing. And heavy light armor, I make a distinction there because there are armors called light armors and armors called heavy armors, and I don't define them that way. I basically define them by cloth or by metal. So something like with Imperial studded armor, that goes in the master bedroom and not with the cloth armor. And all the other kind of miscellaneous clothes, like fancy clothes and normal clothes, as in rags and whatever. Also in the single bedroom, I have a night table where I keep all of my magical items. So this includes spell tomes, rods, scrolls, and like here and in, and I forgot downstairs, behind the stairs, there's also a giant cupboard. That's where I keep all my food. And so in previous games, what I had done, like in Fallout, I was very bad in Fallout 3. I picked up everything. So this game I decided not to do that. So I decided to just focus on rarity. So I just have one of everything. And it's just the more rare, I just kind of like it pops out, essentially. And so, I will just collect one of everything. So Scroll of Blizzard, Scroll of Inferno, all that stuff, just to know it exists. So it's kind of almost like a dev room where I have one of every single item of the game, so that if I ever wanted to see what does this do in Skyrim, I can just boot up that file, my master save file, and admire, look at what is there. And so then if we, oh yeah, and I forgot, under the bed in that bedroom is where I keep all my keys, and they're kind of just, you know, they don't weigh anything, but just to keep your inventory clean. And then if we go across the hall into the master bedroom, actually before we even get there, there's a weapon display, and underneath it there is a cupboard. That's where I keep all my shields. And across from that, there's again an even smaller, narrow cupboard. That's where I keep all of my arrows and archery stuff. Then the master bedroom, as I said, right on the left, you have all of your heavy or real armors, metal armors, everything from Dragonbone to, you know, Imperial Guard, glass, elven, orc, etc. And then across from that, in the chest in the master bedroom, I keep all my weapons, and there are a lot, and they're all legendary, of course. And smithing is weird, by the way. Like you can have a bunch of blacksmith boot, like you can have level 100 in smithing. And smithing, by the way, this is the weird thing. Smithing doesn't actually affect the stats of creating an item, but it does affect when you're upgrading the item only. So if you buy a rare weapon from a blacksmith or you smith it yourself, your smithing level has no impact on the actual values of that item. Like the weapon or the armor doesn't matter, which is very misleading. Also, it does nothing for smelting. When you are taking ores and turning them into ingots, that has no effect there whatsoever. The only thing that smithing does let you do is allows you to have access to be able to smith certain armors. But if you just buy them, there's really no point to have that skill tree. I'll be honest. There's really no point putting perks into smithing. Having high smithing allows you to increase the value of the item. So if it's an armor, it's at a workbench. If it's a blade, or a weapon, it's at the whetstone. But to really max out everything, you just need, first of all, armor that is attuned to give smithing bonuses. So even if you take something to a workbench, let's say a Dwemer armor, or Dwarven armor rather, and you upgrade it to legendary because you have 100 in smithing, if you actually add on apparel and also blacksmith potions, you'll get even a higher boost. So that's really pushing to the limit, which again isn't necessary, but it's just cool. I kind of want to have this idea of like, yeah, I really maxed everything. And I think you might also get a bonus if you do it the Skyforge steel, smithing area. I'm not. I know if you go to the Skyforge, you can forge rare items like Skyforge steel, but again, you don't have to use it. Anyway, that's how you max out smithing. Just for PSA. And yeah, and then beyond that, you have the main bed, and on the nightstands, I have some essentially rare items. On the left, I have jewelry and also any masks. And on the left nightstand, it's actually empty, where I would keep certain items, but I have the Dragonborn legend kind of on the night table. And then I also put some other knickknacks around the house that were just kind of odd things, like moth in a jar, bee in a jar. I have no idea how I came in possession of some of these items. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is some weird thing that's glowing. I can put it in my house, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of that's really it. I mean, the Skyrim endgame is quite something. Really say I've fully completed it. I've maxed out my breeze home. I have special enchanted items. I have legendary in almost every armor, every what do you call, every weapon, every possible thing. I've all the rare items in the game. I have just everything. And like it feels, I don't know, it just feels amazing to be kind of done with one of the greatest games ever made. And I can really say that. Like when Skyrim came out, it was kind of like, oh, this is hype, this is amazing, this is cool. It got me into the other Elder Scrolls games, but it was something that I thought, oh, well, of course Bethesda will make an Elder Scrolls 6 and it'll be better. And here we are, 15 years later, and it is still it is still not out. They announced it in 2018, so at least, oh my god, that's 7 years ago. No, no, that's more than 7 years ago. That's almost. I don't want to think about it, but um, yeah, it's a weird feeling to want to say that Skyrim is one of the greatest games of all time, but when your game is so peak and it's been sold and resold a million times over and ported, and me and a friend were arguing about this or debating about this, that while Skyrim is the most uh, re-release game perhaps ever, I would argue that the most ported game ever is Resident Evil 4, which also has a bunch of re-releases and ports. But like back in the day, or even today, Resident Evil 4 was ported to everything, like the iPhone, the friggin' N-Gage, like it was on everything, and with good reason. It's one of the greatest games ever made. But kind of actually going back to Skyrim and finishing it and playing it in the vanilla state that it was in and experiencing it, it just crystallized that, at the time it was amazing, but I just never thought that it would end, if you know what I mean. I always thought there'd be something more, there'd be something deeper or greater, and that the train would just keep going. The Bethesda would just keep releasing better games, and that is kind of what makes it classic. It's something that everyone loves, everyone thinks is great, and the artist or the team behind it doesn't make another one. And it's kind of bittersweet in a way, where it's like the game is still amazing, the game is still great, but you kind of have to acknowledge that like this was the peak. Like they are never going to make anything better than this. I think if Elder Scrolls 6 even does still come out, I still think it will not be as good. It's like how people want Half-Life 3 and they don't even understand what they want about it, because Half-Life 2, just at the time, it created so many industry standards and it was so ahead of its time. It was so good that you can't actually really expand on it. For example, the jump between Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim is very visible. It's not just gameplay, it's not just game design, it's the whole package. And there's a certain point where like there are limits to everything, to technology, to systems, to designs. And it's a very weird thing that, and this is like a quote by Nintendo, that they even said the reason there isn't a sequel to a Star Fox game or an F-Zero game is because we don't think we can improve on that formula. And like they said we think these are perfect games. Kirby, for example, has been kind of in the shadows for a while. And then Forgotten Lands came out, and I thought it was fantastic. But I had to admit, as good as it was, it didn't actually. I mean, it did do new things, but it wasn't new enough to the point where I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And so there's that feeling that we all want the idea of an Elder Scrolls 6, but no one actually knows what that looks like. Because if you ask for just Skyrim in a desert and elsewhere, and you get that, it's going to be underwhelming, and it's going to be not something you actually want, and you're going to be disappointed. And I didn't really realize this till I got certain sequels to certain games that I realized, oh, I actually don't want them. Like Metroid Prime 4. Yikes. That was, we all wanted Metroid Prime 4, but we were all asking for something that we didn't know what we want. And this is the weird place in between the creator, the studio, and the consumer. It's like similar with Mega Man Legends 3. They were like, hey, we don't know how to make this or how we should make this because Capcom's literally not giving us money to do so. So we're asking the fans to help it make it with us. And when the fans come in, they're going to ask for all the same stuff that they like, rather than the developers being like, "Well, we're actually thinking of building something new." So it's a whole soup of problems. But the Skyrim kind of, trilogy, for lack of a better word, even though the storylines and whatever may not match up, and it might not be a trilogy of stories, it is a trilogy of design and design choices and experiences. And again, even if there's another Elder Scrolls game that comes out and it is good, it can't be like this game. And that's kind of the sad part. It's kind of like with Zelda. They could release another game just like Ocarina or Wind Waker, but people have already played those games. People have already maxed out those experiences, and they realize they had to pivot. And as much as I can see that the new Zeldas are not like the old Zeldas, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are open world games that are good, but are fundamentally not Zelda. It's like we can't really go back. So for better or for worse, Skyrim has ingrained itself as this classic, iconic experience, and there's really nothing we can do to supersede that. That makes any sense. The last thing I guess I'll just say, it really does kind of not exactly surprise me, but makes me really think about half of this game is doing quests and dungeons and talking to NPCs and doing fetch stuff. But the other half of this game, honestly, was organizing my items. Like item inventory organization and all that stuff was a huge part of this game. And thank God there was the music in the background that allowed me to do that, because otherwise I would have gone crazy. Anyway, putting the end of this book down, this final chapter of one of the greatest games of all time, and also my gaming career of this generation, and a lot of other things up until this point, it's just really amazing to be done with this. And even though this is a 2011 game and a DLC from 2012, I still have obviously so much stuff to say. So if that's not evidence enough to not go play Skyrim, please do so eventually at some point and see how it consumes you. I know people who have said they are scared of Skyrim because they know if they start playing it, they will not be able to stop. I think that's the best compliment you can give to a video game. I also know people, and like I'm calling you out because I don't get these people who say, "Oh, I was 30 hours into Skyrim and I decided to reset my save because I forgot what I was doing." Guys, do not do that. Do not, for the love of God, please do not reset your Skyrim saves because you forgot the plot. The plot, whether tacitly or implicitly, of like, oh, I was gonna like max out a mage, or I was doing these side quests, or I was doing Dark Brotherhood. Please, for the love of God, do not reset your save, because you're gonna end up redoing, like, a lot of the stuff in this game is very banal stuff, and it's very experiential stuff that you don't have to go back, because the phobia of you saying I'm not getting the full experience is really what you're saying. And the full experience of Skyrim is like, you don't remember everything. You're not supposed to remember everything, because it's about the feeling of the game and just being in the experience. And so resetting it, you're just going to end up doing a bunch of monotonous stuff over, and you keep trying to hit this feeling of, oh, I'm not getting the real Skyrim experience. The real Skyrim experience is just a long grind that, again, gives you this Zen state. And it's just such a colossal waste of time to restart. And honestly, any Bethesda game save. Like, you just keep going. Oh, what was I doing? I don't know. You suddenly start playing the game for 10 minutes, and you're like, oh, wait, I remember what I was doing. And it all comes back. So anyway, I wish everyone else luck with their Skyrim playthroughs if they actually also make it to the end, do all the side quests, do all the main quests, do all the DLC. I wish you luck, and I wish you a wonderful time, because it is Anyway, that's it.